Kakania is an all-rounder support, almost a paladin of sorts. She significantly enhances her team's survivability by absorbing half of the damage taken by her teammates and provides passive healing as she takes damage herself. On top of that, she also offers a universally useful flat attack buff and even deals a considerable amount of Genesis damage herself. Despite all of this utility in her kit, Kakania is actually one of the simplest characters that was recently released. Kakania's entire kit is centered around a unique resource called Empathy. Every time Kakania takes damage, regardless of the source, she stores 10% of that damage as Empathy. In higher difficulty content, Empathy fills up fairly quickly, especially when facing enemy with AoE attacks. This is because Kakania absorbs 50% of the damage dealt to her allies when they are directly attacked by enemies. Now, unlike how she stores any damage she takes as Empathies, her damage absorption doesn't work on damage from debuff like poison or when allies consume their own HP for skill effects. Kakania's passive survivability doesn't just end here. For every 3% of her max HP stored as Empathy, equivalent to 30% of her max HP taken as damage, Kakania heals the entire team for 10% of her own max HP. In game scenarios, you can expect around 1500 healing per proc, and if enemy deal enough damage in a single instance, Kakania can even heal the team twice in a row. Thanks to her passives, Kakania's teammate will generally stay near max health, with only Kakania slowly losing HP as she stacks Empathy. However, if the enemy consistently targets the same ally, that ally will still lose health despite her damage absorption. There is one more component to Kakania's passive, but this time is more on the offense side. Every time Kakania is healed, she deals 100% of her Empathy as Genesis damage to all enemies. While this works with most active healing, including Kakania's own passive healing, it doesn't trigger from healing buffs like Sotheby's Cure or 6 Revitalize. Additionally, characters who can heal multiple times in a single action, like Vela, can also trigger this effect multiple times. One thing to note is that Empathy maxes out at 20% of Kakania's max HP, and once her Empathy is full, her damage absorption stops functioning. However, this doesn't mean Kakania can only provide support until she absorbs 200% of her max HP as damage. Kakania's ultimate deals 400% of her attack as mental damage, but more importantly, it also unleashes Genesis damage equal to 10 times her current Empathy before resetting her MC back to 0. This means you'll want to use her ultimate frequently in tougher content when survival is key. And resetting MC aside, her ultimate can easily hit for over 25k Genesis damage at max. In addition, her ultimate records all damage that enemy take for the rest of the turn and deals 30% of that recorded damage as Genesis damage at the end of the turn. If you're running a character that can deal a huge amount of damage in a single turn, the repeating damage from Kakania's ultimate will greatly amplify that output, making it a crucial tool for dealing higher damage in Main's Bulletin. Other than her passive and ultimate, Empathy also affects Kakania's basic skills. Comparing to her powerful ultimate, Kakania's skill 1 is fairly simple and also relatively weak. It deals 180% of her attack as mental damage and 180% of her current Empathy as Genesis damage. Most of the times, you won't want to use the skill because it's generally a DPS loss to do so. However, in higher difficulty content, you'll occasionally need to use or fuse the skill to generate more Moxies, so Kakania can reset her Empathy with her ultimate before it's completely full. Kakania's skill 2 is a lot more useful than her skill 1. When you stun allies, Kakania will take 10% of her max health as damage before granting them Solace for 2 turns. Solace gives them 300 plus 10% of the current Empathy stack as attack. The value of the final attack amount snapshots, which means the value of the attack buff it grants will not increase or decrease after being applied, regardless of how Kakania's Empathy changes. This is also why it is worth to use her buff card before using her ultimate, which will reset her Empathy to 0, reducing the power of the buff. Another thing to know is that Kakania can kill herself with this attack as it deals max percentage health instead of current, so do be careful when using the skill. Due to the way the game's damage formula works, the attack buff from Kakania will give your character around a 30% damage boost overall. Against most endgame enemies, this can also amount to around 60% defense penetration. While this buff is not as strong as some others, this buff is still universally useful, even for characters who run some poison like Sotheby. Kakania's skill 2 works differently when applied to herself. When used on herself, she will not gain any buff, but instead heal for 20% of her max HP, which is quite a competitive amount even considering other healers. Against harder content, you might need to do this to ensure that Kakania do not die for tanking too much damage in burst. There is no specific rotation when it comes to Kakania, and I think I've already covered the key point with her skill, so let's move straight to her build and teams. Kakania doesn't have many alternative Psycubes, mainly because no other Psycube can offer the Genesis damage bonus that her signature does. If you don't have the resource to level up her signature Psycube, your best alternative is to use HP focused Psycubes, even if she can't utilize their passives. For Resonance, I highly recommend focus entirely on HP. Kakania's mental damage is negligible and she doesn't need damage reduction either, as damage she absorbs for teammates is dealt as Genesis damage, which is not affected by her defensive stats. And by increasing her HP, you will also boost her maximum empathy and overall power of her kit. Kakania's portrait are for most part pretty strong with the exception of her P4. Portrait 1 boosts the power of her attack buff, providing up to 8% overall damage increase for the team. Portrait 2 reduces the amount of damage Kakania needs to take to trigger her healing. And on top of directly increasing the amount of Genesis damage you do when receiving healing, this portrait also causes you to occur more frequently, as every time she passively heals herself, she also triggers the OE Genesis damage. Portrait 3 is the most impactful portrait of her, as it increases her empathy cap and enhances empathy conversion efficiency. This leads to a significant boost in her entire kit, allowing her to heal more often and maintain higher level of empathy, resulting in stronger buffs and more powerful ultimate. Portrait 4 is pretty much useless as it only slightly improves the damage of her Underwhelming skill 1, making it a minimum upgrade. Finally, Portrait 5 enhances both the initial Genesis damage of her ultimate and also boosts the end of turn damage from 30% to 45%. This portrait shines a lot more when paired with high burst character like Windsound, as it can amplify their damage output by considerable amount in Main's Bulletin. Kakania can support almost any team, but there are a few playstyles she synergizes with especially well. Her passive damage sharing greatly reduces the risk of your allies dying, making her an excellent fit for characters who become more powerful at low health, such as SimOS, who you get for free this patch, and Jay coming in patch 2.0. This synergy is even stronger with Jay since Kakania can store empathy even when the damage is absorbed by a shield. Outside of those, she pairs particularly well with characters who can deal high burst damage in a single turn, making her an ideal partner with Windsound, forming one of the strongest raid teams. As for healers, Villa and Tooth Fairy will still be the two best options, with Villa being the better choice this time. Kakania provides a significant amount of passive healing when her empathy isn't full, and in more cases, she'll be the only character losing health during battle. Villa's concentrated healing helps with keeping Kakania topped off, plus by stacking both buff on one hyper carry, you can also amplify their power to a crazy degree. If you're working with a budget or are new to the game, Yanasai and Bloom Party are also great healing options. Yanasai offers a single targeted healing similar to Vela, while Bloom Party heals based on missing health, making it a solid low investment option for keeping Kakania healthy. Do keep in mind, the actual DPS will still be the main consideration when picking which healer you will be using. And that's everything to know about Kakania. Whether you're pairing her with high burst DPS or just using her to keep everyone alive either, she's a versatile support that can make your gameplay experience a lot smoother. Good luck to everyone who's pulling for her, and as always, this has been Steambound X. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.